Hello and welcome to our last week of class for Online Writing 122Z. It's week 10, so this is our last week of instruction, and then next week is going to be finals week. So this is our last video recording for our class. But we have a few goals this week, and I'm going to talk to you about a few assignments. But the goals we have start with reflecting on the essay submission. So your major essay was due last week in week 9. You're going to reflect on that. We're going to learn about and then begin work on the class final project. And the final project for our class is called the visual remediation. I will go over the prompt with you in just a minute. And then I would ask, this is totally optional, but I wanted to bring it up, if you could complete the course evaluation. It is worth some extra credit. If we reach 80% participation in the course evaluation, I'll give everyone 5 points of extra credit in the class overall. So that course evaluation, I'll show you where to find that. Hopefully you got an email about it, but it's also on Canvas as well. That's due this Friday. But let's go over, we're going to start with the final project. So our final project is called the visual remediation. All right, so I'd like to go over the final project with you, and the final project is called the visual remediation. And I have the separate prompt. We'll go over the prompt in a little bit, but this PowerPoint presentation has a lot of that information in here as well. So the last 10 weeks, or almost 10 weeks, right? You've been researching a problem-based research topic. You're talking about solutions, why is it important, and your essay is formulating that argument about what should we do about it, right? But what is the visual remediation? So I want you to do is think about your argumentative topic, and you're going to present that information to a new audience in a new potentially public visual format. So I'm not asking you to create a poster that you'd get printed. You're doing everything digitally for this class, but hypothetically, right, if you were to create something visual. So essentially, you're going to use your research topic, you're transforming it to reach a new audience and a new genre as well. That's the way that you're delivering that information. So I have some examples I'll show you in a little bit, but some people choose to do an infographic, they do a digital poster, they create a website, maybe they do a brochure or a pamphlet or something like that. But I've gotten a lot of pretty creative responses. But essentially what we're doing is we're negotiating different genre conventions and how does that affect the way that we reach an audience. So someone reading a paper, that's a very different audience than someone seeing a poster in a hallway or someone reading a children's book or whatever. So essentially, I want you to ask, who else do you want to reach with this topic? Who else do you think it would be important to reach that an academic paper is a little bit outside of that scope, and how do you want to reach them? All right, so there are two main parts of this project. Number one is the actual remediated project in the new medium that uses 3 sources from the paper. And then second is you're writing an intro paragraph. So this is not an essay for our final. It's very far from an essay, right? It's a visual project, but the only thing I'm asking you to write is an intro paragraph. So just one paragraph, 1 or 2, where you're introducing to me, why did you create this project? So you're essentially trying to make an argument for why this worked better for your audience than an essay would have. And you're hearing me say things like genre conventions and things like that during this video. So what are they? Conventions are the agreed upon ways that something's usually done. So if I asked you, picture a movie poster in your head, right? So take a second, picture a movie poster. What does it look like? Normally we have the title or some sort of format that we're seeing the name of the movie, either at the top or the bottom. There are usually the stars in the center, and at the bottom we have a list of names, maybe, the date that it comes out, details about the movie format, and so on. So other conventions of a poster might be that it's usually a mix of pictures and text, but it's really picture heavy, right? They're usually hung somewhere where they can be viewed by a specific target audience. So movie posters outside of a theater, the posters that are in my office or around campus are a lot different in that sense. But a convention is just, how do we normally do something? So if I asked you how we normally make a poster, or what a children's book normally looks like, you have an idea in your head already without even doing any research about what that medium would actually entail or what it would look like. I have a sample reading on this slide. If you're interested, you can check out these slides on Canvas too, but there's a couple sample readings on here. So if you decide to make an infographic, for example, it explains that infographics are normally a mix of written and visual content. They're not cluttered. And a big thing with them is that they're actionable, which means they have this logical flow of information. They often use a flowchart style, and they have a lot of source info. So these are some conventions of an infographic, just as one example. And again, the difference between genre and medium, you're going to be hearing me say these terms, right? But genre is the type of writing. So what we did was an argumentative essay, and then medium is how are we delivering that information. So an email versus you're printing something out, for example. So genre and medium are both determined by the audience and the purpose of what you're writing. So going back to our rhetorical terms from many weeks ago, so just to give you another example, a horror film, right? Horror is the genre. Film is just how that genre is being delivered to the audience. Same thing with a satirical newspaper. It's satire, that's the genre, but you're delivering it in terms of a newspaper format. That's the medium. So all I'm asking you to change for our class is the medium, not necessarily the genre. So I'm not asking you to choose a new research topic or to do any new research about that problem that you were looking into earlier this term. I'm asking you to change how you're delivering that information. So if you think, oh, this is really important, we should be targeting children, or children should learn about this topic, um, you can make a children's book. I've had people do that for this class as well. So if you want to target a new audience that a paper would not reach, totally, that's a huge goal of this project. So you're trying to think about who else could learn about this. Why would it be important for them? So again, genre, we're staying with the same argumentative research, but the medium you totally get to choose. Here are some questions that I would ask you to review or think about when you're creating whatever you're going to create. So if you're doing a brochure, why would someone look at a brochure, right? What are they used for? Where are they normally found? What are they effective in accomplishing? So why would that accomplish your new goal? And then who's the typical audience? That's a huge portion about this project, is you're changing who that audience is. And then for the intro paragraph, some questions to consider. Here's what I essentially want you to do is think about who the old audience was versus the new one, and then let me know what the old medium was. That's your paper. And then talk about the new medium. You're justifying why you did it. So you're explaining to me, here is why a brochure would work better for parents than a 5-page research paper or whatever, right? So you get to justify it based on whatever your new medium is. And here is a list of some of the things I've received for this class, or that some of my colleagues have received that I thought were pretty cool, so I put on here. I've gotten comic strips before. No one's ever took me up on doing a music video. You're welcome to. I did have someone do a TED. They did one of those TED for Kids animated videos. Very impressed by what they were able to accomplish with that. But think about video formatting and video formats. Who would watch a video and where? You can create a map, you can create a game or a board game. It's really popular for this class to create a poster or a trifold. And a trifold is like a brochure that opens up and it has 3 panels on each side. Really popular, and I have some recommendations. Pictochart, you can create one for free. Canva is the best, right? Canva, you can create pretty much anything these days. I would recommend those 2 websites for doing brochure. And then we have children's book. I don't have any digital examples of a children's book, unfortunately. I have had people do children's book for my class before in person, and they've turned out really successfully. They just designed them online and they printed it out, or they showed it to the class that way. Since our class is online, you can do it totally online. That's, again, totally acceptable. But you'll have to think about what sort of program you want to use to create a children's book. I've had a lot of people do it on PowerPoint, for example. They use the PowerPoint slides as a different page. But there are probably other programs that can do that too. I had someone do bumper stickers one year, social media pages or websites. I've had some good ones. It's essentially whatever else you can come up with. So I've had people do promotional t-shirt series, right? So if they did more of a general audience when you're walking around in the world and you're seeing the back of someone's graphic t-shirt, you might be learning something about an important issue. I had someone do, bumper stickers are on here, but I had someone do like promotional mugs or things that you'd get at an event or something like that too. So it's pretty much whatever you can come up with. The only thing I'm asking you not to create for the remediation you cannot do is you cannot do a PowerPoint presentation. We've already done that for this class. You did a PowerPoint for our class back in week 5. Now we're at the point where you're creating something else visual. You can use PowerPoint as a tool though. So like I mentioned, if you want to create a children's book on slides, it's not a presentation, you're actually using it as the pages, that's okay. You just can't do slides because we've already done that in general. And then something I'll have you just think back to, many weeks ago we talked about rhetoric. the rhetorical situation. So you want to think about the elements of the rhetorical situation. What motivates you to change this project? Who will the new audience be? That's a big one. What's the purpose? That's another big one too. Who's creating it is you, and then what the subject matter is, that's staying the same too. So I'm not asking you to do any new research except for finding a source about genre conventions. We're not going to go over this portion together, but I have some sillier examples of remediation that happens, what I like to call out in the wild, just on social media and in pop culture. And I have some examples that involve Shia LaBeouf. So if you want to go through, you can watch some of those or see some of those on this slide. Some sillier examples, but there are some songs, there's a music video, there's a stage production, there's articles, and so on. So kind of sillier examples. But I'm going to switch over to the prompt, and I'll go over with you the rest of the details of what the visual remediation is. So you got most of the rundown in the slides that are on Canvas that I just showed you, but the actual remediation prompt is there as well. You can see the due dates coming up in week 11 is finals week, that's next week. It's worth 100 points, and then your responses to your peers are a separate 25, and it lets you know what sort of sources I'm looking for, 3 from your paper, and all you're looking for is that one more about genre conventions. And the prompt is split up into those parts. Part 1 is you're creating what I call the thing, right? So it's a brochure, it's a poster, it's a children's book, it's something like that. And I want you to consider who else would benefit from that information. Here's that list of suggestions again, but I have some more on the slides. It's a little bit longer of a list. And then part 2, after creating that visual, write and submit that one paragraph that justifies why you did it. So let me know who the old audience is and the new one, and why is this new format better. And then like written work, you just want to make sure it's proofread, it's error-free. But essentially the goals of this project are to experiment and adapt composing processes for a variety of technologies and modalities. We're trying to use some new programs for this that'll help us understand audience. And that's my second point here, is to see how the conventions of certain genres affects audience. That's a big one for this class. You can find the accompanying slides here. I just showed you those. And I have one more thing to show you. It is the sample remediation intro paragraph. This is also on Canvas. I'm going to have you read through it on your own, but essentially this is a real paragraph that I've received in the past. And they decided to split theirs up into 2. The first portion was about their topic and how they changed the formatting. And then the second paragraph was about justifying that. So why did they change the formatting and who is it for now? And you can see there's a source in here. This was a genre convention source about, I think it was posters. And they talked about, posters. Here is why it works so well for this new audience that I chose. So that's the source they were finding. References are here, and you can see some of my feedback and commentary on the right-hand side here about why this intro paragraph was a really good example. It's a little bit longer than what I need. I'm looking for an intro paragraph that's around 250 words, but this person had a lot to say. It's totally fine if you go over the word count for the intro paragraph. And that is the visual remediation. So if you have any questions about what to create, how to create it. I do have some suggestions for programs that you can use. Like I said, Canva and PictoChart are really good. If you're looking for like video editing software, I might have some recommendations for you there. But truth be told, you probably know more about the recommended software than I would at this point. And I love to get recommendations, so if you have any, please let me know. I also wanted to point out, here's our Canvas shell with some updated stuff in the week 10 module. Here's the prompt and the sample paragraph, and I have 3 samples uploaded here from previous students, some infographics, and 1 brochure that someone created. So if you kind of want to see what some people have done in the past, those are just 2 examples. Again, there are so many different things you can create. I am totally open to things other than brochures, other than posters, other than children's books. Think outside the box. The sky's the limit for this one. If you're wondering, will this format work? Should I get permission to do it? Just send me an email and we can talk about it and see if it'll work. But most likely it should be fine. But anyway, that is our week 10. That's our final project, and this is our last video. So let me know if you have any questions. Good luck working on your final, and yeah, good luck with all your other finals as well.